Welcome back to part 2 of silver cell number 2, pure silver crystal harvest. And I'd just like you to show you something down in here. If you notice, I've got one single crystal. Look at that thing, man. It's trying to reach out and touch the anode basket. And what happens is one of those dendrites starts forming and approaching the anode basket, and the closer it gets, the faster it grows. And those are very fine, spindly looking crystals, and eventually, if left unattended, that single crystal right there would make contact with that anode basket, and we'd burn a hole in that thing. It'll short the cell out. It'll make direct contact between the positive and negative poles, create a bunch of heat, and then burn a hole in the anode filter and release all those slimes down into the silver cell. And here you can see the current flow that I have going on through there is 0.9 amps. And you'll notice that I have an automotive type 3 amp fuse installed in the positive side, so that if that thing does short out, it'll pop that fuse, it'll burn that fuse instead of burning a hole in my bag and ruining my batch of silver. And you can see I've still got current flow, so that means that fuse has not been burnt. Let's take a look down inside the silver cell number 1. Oh yeah, it's looking good in there. This is, I think, about 5 or 6 days worth of growth. It's slow going, and I think that's because the impure silver up here is dirty, and it's creating a interference with the current flow through the cell. And so when that happens, the crystal growth slows way down. Let me get in here and knock that crystal down. Look how close that thing is to the reaching out towards the anode basket. And so I've got some others back here also that are way in the back. You can't see them, but in behind the filter anode basket, they're reaching out. So I've got everything knocked down. I've got to take care of a couple of chores first, but what we're going to do in this video is harvest the pure silver crystal out of silver cell number 2. While I'm working on the silver cells, I'm simultaneously doing a gold refining. I had this on all night down low, and I just turned it up so we could boil it. That's hot dilute nitric acid, and we're pulling out the silver out of the unquarted gold down in the bottom of that beaker. And it's time to change this out. All the fumes are gone. It's time to change this out. And here's a shot of the electrolyte that we cemented on a piece of copper from the video where we recovered the silver out of silver cell number 1. I'm cementing the remaining silver out of that electrolyte in this container. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and change out the nitric boil here. What I do is I just pour it off into this silver jar. It's got some pieces of sterling in there, and the excess nitric in this liquid that I'm pouring off, which there will be plenty, will react with those pieces of sterling silver in there and consume the rest of the nitric acid. You can see the gold is turning a nice brown color now, and I'm going to rinse this out. Get all that blue color off there that I can. It's probably pretty close to pure gold in there right now, but since that nitric boil was still pulling blue color, it probably means we're still pulling silver. Now let me reach in here, add a little bit more distilled water, not much. and a little bit more nitric acid. And we're going to do another nitric boil until we get a colorless solution. I've had this on boiling for multiple hours now, and if you notice, the solution is colorless in there. And what that means is that we've got all the silver and all the base metals pulled out of there now with these nitric acid boils. Pour this right into the silver jar. I've got some sterling in here. It'll consume the rest of the acid, the nitric acid that I'm pouring off into the to the silver jar. And now what we have here is the gold down inside this beaker, just like it is, sitting right there, just like that. Is very close to 3/9 fine. Okay, for now I'm just going to cover this up with some water. I'll set it up here and let it heat for a while, and then come back to that later. I want to get this out of the fume hood while we're working on silver. Here we go. Silver cell number 2, harvest. We'll begin by turning off the power supply and disconnecting these leads up here. Some distilled water. Let's pour off this first rinse into our silver bucket. There's going to be a ton of silver in here again. But as you can tell, there's too much silver too bulky, so I'm going to have to split it up into 2 beakers here so that we can rinse it properly. That should do it. Now we're going to commence our distilled water rinses. May as well put a couple pieces of copper down here to start cementing out the silver. Alright, we've got all the electrolyte rinsed off of here. If you look down in here, I've got some silver nitrate in an old nitric acid bottle that's been filtered. And what we're going to do is we're going to pour that in here. This is a highly concentrated silver nitrate solution in this bottle. And if I try to cement the silver out of this highly concentrated solution, we could passivate on the copper, so we need a lot of distilled water to dilute this solution down. I'm just going to add this right on in, and we'll cement the silver out of that solution. Now let's put the silver in a dish here. Let's take this over and put it on heat and dry it out. Let's pull this gold solution down out of the way. It's just boiling in some distilled water. You can see it's ready to be refined with aqua regia. We're going to set our silver up here on some low heat and allow that to dry so we get a weight on it. We've got the crystal dried off now. What we'll do is take it in and try to get a weight on this. Before we go in and weigh the harvest from silver cell number 2, what I'm going to do out here is, this is the cell. I've got a nice clean bowl ready to go, and what we'll do is use the same electrolyte a second time. I'm going to filter this, and then I'm going to add some additional electrolyte from this silver that we dissolved earlier in part 1. Then we'll put one of these Dacron filter bags in a new anode basket. Put the impure shot in the anode basket and then set the silver cell up. I'm going to do that off camera to save time. Right now, let's go in and get a weight on this pure silver crystal from silver cell number 2. All right, let's get a weight on this. I like to store the crystal in a glass container with a tight fitting lid. Mrs. Three Tips gets these for me at sales for a few bucks. Let's go ahead and get down here and see what kind of yield we're going to have. I'm just going to start shoveling this right in. Let's see what kind of weight we get on this. All right, there we go. 1,456 grams of high purity silver. Man, does that stuff really look good. Okay, this will conclude part 2 of silver cell number 2, refining and recovery series videos. I'd like to thank everybody for watching.